Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone, if you enjoy this content, please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Carly Ducote on the podcast. Can't believe I got that one right. I thought it was going to be difficult, but hey, we powered through and we got it. She's coming to us all the way from Florida, where it's a little bit nicer there, I would assume, weather-wise, but she's a pro bikini competitor as well as a realtor. And yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey and just discuss all things health and fitness. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Carly, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on today.
I'm not even going to try to ask what the weather's like because I'm just looking outside and it's so gloomy right now. So to get things started on a more positive note, Carly, why don't you just start us off and give us your backstory on what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led you to become a bodybuilder?
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess we're going to start from the beginning. So taking it back to the 90s. My birthday was actually last Wednesday. So literally the very beginning. I was born in 1996, just turned 27. So if you think about TV in the 90s during that time before we had Netflix.
I was born in 94, by the way, so I know exactly what you're talking about whenever you're going to say.
We're on the same page then. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Back whenever you couldn't really choose what you wanted to watch. You had to, whatever was on, that was it. So I also had an older brother. He's 9 years older than me. So I'm sitting there in diapers and he's getting ready for school in the morning. So as you can imagine how that morning went, my mom's running around. He's pretty hyper, trying to get everybody dressed, breakfast, all that stuff. So she just turns on the TV for me. As you can imagine, what is probably on during that early hour is maybe like the news, some kind of infomercial. And then they had fitness coach Denise Austin's workout tape. So that's what she picked for me. I can understand why. If you ever watch her videos, they've got some nice background music. Her voice is so soothing. And I loved it. So whenever her workout session was over, I was pretty upset. My mom was like trying to explain, hey, like it's over. It'll be back on tomorrow. But so that's kind of, that went on for a while. And then one day it was like, instead of just watching the videos, what if I tried to do one? So as I got older, I started getting into sports. I began with dance, a little bit of gymnastics when I was 3. Later on, I started playing some basketballs. I went into tennis. I really like to try and experiment with new things. So I was always ready to go into the next sport. But then I always kind of came back to cheerleading. So cheerleading was definitely my favorite sport. And this was really a very impactful time for me when I really started to get into working out more heavily. I switched schools. So after cheering for a while with my team, I went into tryouts, and these girls were super experienced. They've been cheering for a really long time. So the whole time I was playing, tennis, basketball, they were cheering all those years. So I knew I had some catching up to do if I wanted to cheer with them. So I couldn't take back the time that I missed out, but I knew that I could work on myself and make myself stronger to give my body the tools I needed to be able to spin around in the air and throw people and do all that fun stuff. So I continued to just learn as much as I could on my own. I spent a lot of my summers just studying as much as I could online. I got into doing more workout tapes. I actually got into Jillian Michaels. She's really tough, so I enjoy hers a lot. She will make you sweat. She will make you cry. And she's pretty mean, so that's kind of fun for me. And then a few years later, I actually had a male cheerleading coach introduce me to weightlifting. So the idea was to teach us the explosion and all that power that comes out for tumbling, as well as, doing power cleans and things like that. So he was teaching us how to do it safely, correct form, and I fell in love with it. I never looked back. I went on to taking advanced conditioning classes in high school. I was the only girl. It was me and basically the entire football team and the wrestlers. And then after cheerleading and I went on to college, I was cheer captain for 2 years. And then I met my bodybuilding coach at a gym, and he started training with me, and I've never turned back since.
What was one thing that surprised you most about the bodybuilding sport and lifestyle? Because so many people that go into it, they don't really have that much knowledge about it, and there's just so little that the general public really has in knowledge when it comes to the sport.
I think that's exactly it. I think there is so much to learn. And even though I know a lot, I never stop learning. And that is one thing I absolutely love about bodybuilding. Um, it's funny because there's a lot to learn, but at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. You know, if you want to be in shape, work out, eat clean, move more, eat less. But then again, if you want to get really technical and into the science and everything, that never stops.
It's never ending. I mean, this I could just rename this to trial and error because it's all just about learning from mistakes and going on. I mean, it's you're basically like a NASA scientist. Basically, you're just
Yeah.
keep failing, and trying again. So yeah, it's totally like that too. But I mean, when you were getting started, this is so much more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. What has this whole journey been like for you mentally?
I have grown so much mentally. I think it's getting started, you know, it's always very challenging and you kind of just have to go for it. You can do more than you think you can. And it just takes enough time after time to realize, hey, I really can do more than I think I can. So if I want to do something, I have to go for it no matter what. And that comes with if you want to push more weight, if you want to go faster, anything.
Yeah. And it really just is amazing to me the mental strength that all these athletes that I talk to have on. And I think that's the most important quality because you can, have all the physical strength you need, but if you don't have that mental strength, you're not going to really, amount to anything. But what was your friends and family's reaction like when you announced them, like, hey, I want to give this bodybuilding a try?
So I actually grew up in Tennessee, which is a lot different from Florida. It's just way more conservative. So that was kind of something that was a challenge for me for a long time. Even before I got into bodybuilding necessarily, it was always just kind of like, you get it. So whenever I was actually like, I'm going to take it to the next level and I'm going to put on fake eyelashes and spray myself orange and I'm going to stand on stage in heels and a bikini and pose. And it's really weird to explain that to people. Let me tell you what. I remember going to work and I was like, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. And I'm like, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, so I'm doing this thing. If you're not in it, you don't understand it. So
Well, and being that you're also a realtor and that's a job where you have to be really open and communicative, you have to be a people's person. Do you think that that's helped you with bodybuilding? Because you also have to be very open with yourself to go on stage in a bikini and pose in front of people.
yes, I think if anything, both of these things help me hand in hand. I think real estate helps me in bodybuilding a lot, especially as far as the mentality goes. I was very surprised how similar the mindset needs to be from bodybuilding to real estate. Um, and then in the same way, you know, as the more I compete, the more my name gets out there, helps me with real estate as well. So
How do you deal with prep brain, especially being a realtor? Do you just not see as many clients when you're really down into it? Or because I can't imagine, being that depleted and being functioning at any job personally myself.
the greatest part about real estate is that I get to set my own schedule. So if I have an appointment in the morning and I know I'm going to be a little bit cranky if I don't get my fasted cardio in, then hey, I'll just wake up 45 extra minutes earlier, get it done. Then I can go see them and be a little bit more pleased than if I missed a workout. Vice versa, if I know I'm going to be super cranky in the afternoon, then I'll just switch it around if I need to.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Oh, definitely. Just be able to set your own hours. Sign me up for that. Good God. But when it also comes down to this sport too, there's just a huge time commitment. It is a selfish sport, but when I say selfish, it's not in a bad way. It's just in a way that, it is selfish because it takes up so much of your time. How have you been trying to find a somewhat of a balance time wise? Because even though you do have a job where you can set your hours, I mean, when you're doing that on top of bodybuilding, on top of just the cardio, tracking all your meals, doing all that, a lot of people struggle with trying to find a balance socially.
It is very difficult, especially socially. Yes, I will say I have some very hard preps, and the diet gets to me sometimes. Um, if I'm not in the mood, I'm just not in the mood. Like, I'm sorry, probably not the best day to hang out with me. And you know, you have your people. They're either there for you and they get it, or they're not. So if you can't hang out on Saturday, that's fine. You'll hang out with me on Tuesday. Or if that's not cool, you're probably not going to be in my circle because this is my life. I'm not going to change it. Um, Whenever it comes to just like staying on schedule and making sure you get everything in, I think the best advice is just to get in the groove and find something that works and just do the same thing every day. If it's not broke, there's no reason to fix it. If that works for you, we don't need to play the switch up game and change it around.
Yeah, again, another sort of mental aspect that isn't really talked about so much about the sport, but I also love to talk about genetics because everyone always starts off with those body parts that really, really take off for them when they get, first started in the sport. And then everyone always has a body part that really, really drags behind they have to train to oblivion. What was one body part that took off for you the most? And what was one body part that you've just had to drag behind this entire time?
Definitely my arms. They just are naturally, I'm gifted in
She's a
that
gym
area.
bro at heart.
What's that?
You're a gym bro at heart.
Yes. So my arms, my upper body, I always get compliments on my biceps, triceps. Unfortunately, that leaves my lower body. So I find it very difficult to build hamstrings, little baby calves. So
Is that hard knowing that you're genetically blessed most in a body part that really has no effect on the bikini division?
it is. Yes. And I'll be honest, I it took me 6 competitions before I won my bikini pro card, and I didn't know if it would ever happen for me. So I was really really excited when it finally did. It's kind of hard to be told that you should maybe do better in figure or you're too lean for bikini and things like that, but it's that's almost the best thing about bikini is because it can go either way. It depends on who your judge is, who has which opinion. Because I've also been told the opposite. I've had judges tell me that I am 100% a bikini girl. I should stay in bikini. Um, so
Well, that brings up another great point too. How do you deal with sort of some of the bipolar judging that can happen where you have half the people saying, yeah, move up the figure, you're too big for bikini, and then other people saying, no, you're perfect for bikini, because that would just drive me crazy personally, not knowing, how I'm going to be judged at a show if half the people think one thing and half the people think another. And those are the opinions that matter.
yes, it is complicated. It is mind boggling. Honestly, I try not to think into it too much. I always want to get feedback from judges, yes, of course, but at the end of the day, I just talk about it with my coach. We come up with a plan and we find out something that's working. Been working well so far, so we'll just keep it going.
And what is that moment like for you when you get to step on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
It's extremely rewarding. It is it's amazing. During that moment, it's just me out there. It's my time. I am here to show what I've worked for, and I'm very proud to show everybody. I love feeling the lights from the stage, and just I feel like everything's dark except for me out there.
Oh, and I just gotta say, I should have said this before we started recording, but if you do see me like looking to the left, I'm writing down stuff, and what I do is for some of the answers, I have a poll where I take your answer and then I compare it to everyone else's, so I get a general idea. And then every once in a while, I publish like, oh, this is what 15% of my guests said about this topic, and this is what so and so. So I'm not. I'm focused on you. I'm just taking notes sometimes, and because I got that comment down before, it's like you're looking down a lot, and it's like, well, I'm just taking a note. Like if I were to ask you what body part took off or something, you said arms, I'll just write down arms, and then I'll write down body part that struggled, lower body, and I do all that. But yeah, stepping on that stage, I can't imagine what that feeling would be like, especially after all that hard work that you put on into it. But when they announced your name and you realized I'm a pro now, what was that moment like for you?
So exciting, so exciting. That day, I actually competed in 2 other divisions, and I won first as well. So
Wellness and figure?
I did physique and figure.
You did physique?
I did. I did physique. I did figure. First place. And then bikini, I'm telling you, it can go either way for me. So I was trying not to get super excited, but I was really excited. Um, but I was very blown away because I've been in the other situation before too. So you can't always win. You have to know what it feels like to lose. So after losing so many times, it was definitely well earned.
How many people were you competing against? Because I'm sorry, you should not win all 3 divisions, honestly.
I can't remember how many people were in that show. They definitely had the most competitors in bikini. They always do. But
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, if you win in physique, that just shouldn't be. But it's just, I mean, again, they judge based on what they see. So sometimes you just, you have to give them credit for that. But I've heard that more recently, and I'm like, I don't know. That's like I don't even know really how to compare because that's like a featherweight boxer competing against a heavyweight. And I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
well, it's a lot of posing. The way you pose takes into account too. So I changed my suit, and they were saying every time I came out, it looked like a different um, person. So
out of the three, what is your favorite type of posing?
for ev-
Out of the three divisions that you competed in, what's your
divisions,
favorite posing?
I love the physique poses. I think they're super fun, but I love the bikini division the most.
Well, and speaking about posing, since you had to master, three divisions worth of posing, what is your relationship like with posing? Because so many guests that I talk to, that's one of the hardest, if not the hardest things about this entire lifestyle.
Posing is something that definitely gets pushed to the back burner. I think whenever you're in prep, it's so easy to just get dialed in on the workouts and the cardio and the diet and workouts, cardio and diet. And then all of a sudden you're a few weeks out and it's like, oh my gosh, I should probably throw those heels on. Once I get started posing, I love it. I could keep going, but it's just getting out of that cycle of workouts and food and actually get into the glam and the posing and aesthetic art side of it.
And I mean, there is an art aspect to it as well. You're also sculpting the body. It's a lot of things that aren't really talked about as much. But what is your go-to post-show meal?
Ooh, I'm a burger girl. I really like burgers and fries. I also like Mexican, which probably isn't great because of the cheese, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, good luck see, my tongue-tied twisted moment. Good luck digestion-wise, because that is, even for me, not even on a prep. I mean, I just have too much Norwegian blood in me where anything that spicy and that hot, good luck, good luck with that. But let's also be honest too, you're not the average looking, 20-year-old or woman in their 20s, and it's just whenever you walk down the street, maybe look like this, you're gonna draw people's attention just because it's human nature when you see something that's not the normal. What has that been like? Because I compare it to being like a mini celebrity, and have you gotten used to it as you've competed more and more? The fact that you are, especially as you get closer to shows, you are going to draw more people's attention.
Yes, I've definitely gotten used to that. I feel like I never know really exactly why somebody might be staring at me. In the gym, it could be more obvious, but I've gotten compliments on things like my hair or my outfits and stuff like that. So I gotten really used to it and learned how to say thank you. Sometimes people think they're complimenting you, but maybe you don't take it as a compliment, but you say thank you anyways.
Yep, I've gotten plenty of those myself, and you're just like, oh well, at least they might think they mean well. So yeah, you're just, yeah, thanks for that. But
Especially whenever people try to compliment fit women, I feel like they don't always know how to say it in a way that isn't
what's the most
offensive.
awkward compliment someone's ever given you?
Somebody asked me if I was like a wrestler, which I guess that could be a compliment, but I didn't really take it as one. I was like, no. Um, People always try to guess what kind of sports I play, and I always think that's funny because they're never right.
Do they guess CrossFit?
Yeah, I get that. They'll guess softball, soccer. I'm like, I've never played soccer in my life, actually, although I have played a lot of
You'd be
sports.
too yoked to play soccer anyway. Like it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So it's just funny whenever people to hear what people think sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And how is that? Has that at all ever changed your perception just on not really caring about how others judge you? Because that's something that a lot of people in their 20s struggle with, and some of them even continue on to later in life. But I feel like if you do something like this, that's more a little bit on the extreme side, you sort of get that appreciation of, I'm not going to let what other people think bother me.
Yeah, the deeper you get into it, absolutely, the less you care. At first, I kind of used it as motivation to the gym. I was like, this guy pissed me off, so now I'm just going to lift really heavy. Uh, so I kind of think that's fun in a way as well. But I also have learned to just kind of brush it off. It's not worth it. I'm going to continue to live the way I live, anyways. So as long as I'm happy and healthy, it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say or thinks.
Angry workouts are some of the best workouts you can ever get. Like
They're the
just
best.
don't overtrain. That's the only problem I had one time where I overtrained because I was just so full of adrenaline. Then I woke up the next morning and I was like, definitely pulled something, did something. So you just got to be
Yeah,
careful on that.
gotta
But
watch it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, when it also comes to overtraining too, everybody I think at least once or twice in their journey struggles with being able to, find out what works best for them training wise. Because like we said, it is a journey. Have you ever struggled with overtraining at all? Because I think with a lot of bodybuilders, at first, it's really hard for them to realize what their limit is when it comes to how much their body can take.
Yes, definitely. Back to the emotional side, like you're saying, I've been gone through just some tough periods, and it was like I would go to the gym and then I would ride a bike, and it was like hours and hours, and I would just not stop working out. And it's like eventually I had to go inside and eat something, I guess. It was like I could just keep going. Which I've learned as long as I, just stick to the plan and spread it out. If I want to go hard on arms, then I just have to give it a few days, do lower body tomorrow. You don't have to stay in tomorrow, but just don't do the same muscle group again.
Yeah. Oh, and that's, at least you're in a division two, or you got your pro card in a division where, you can't be training arms every day anyway. So at least there's that. I
Yes.
guess there's a negative that like it doesn't really impact the division much, but there's also a positive where then you're not incentivized to train them as much as you normally would. But just again, the toll that this sport takes on a lot of people is just it's just ridiculous when you have those days that you don't feel like training. Because let's be honest, everyone does. You can lie to me and say that you never have those days, which a handful of people have, and I just nod my head in agreement. But deep down, I'm thinking like they're lying. But just let them roll with it. We'll see how this goes. But when you do have those days where you're just not feeling it, where does that strength come from to complete the workout? Because when we're talking about that mental strength, that's the one thing that I think differentiates bodybuilders more than the general public, is that people in the general public, they'll find that excuse to not work out, but bodybuilders, they just somehow find a way to push through most of the time.
Discipline. You have to have discipline. If you have your plan set for the week, I don't care what happens. You got to get in. You got to get your workout in. Um, Not to say you'll never miss one. Things do come up, but if you're not feeling it, the sooner you get in, the sooner you can get out, and then you can relax. That's the best way that I look at it. It's just get in, get it done. I'm really I'm very into morning workouts too. So if you get it done first thing, whatever happens during the day, it's already finished. You don't have to worry about it.
How do you deal with maybe the guilt you might feel if you're kind of forced to miss a day? Because even me not competing, I would still have those days where I would just feel so guilty. How did you cope and deal with that mentally?
It's hard to avoid the feeling of having to make up for it, whether it's more reps, longer cardio. That is definitely something hard to avoid. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, don't kill yourself. Just start fresh again, get back on track. It will be okay.
No, absolutely. And you just got to realize that everybody has those days. Like you're not going to avoid being entirely not sick for years on end. You're not going to be able to avoid, not getting injured every once in a while. It goes with the process. But last question really on mentality, but let's be honest, the moment you become a bodybuilder, you're never good enough, you're never big enough, you're just and one of the dumbest things I ever thought in my life was, hey, if I really got in really good shape, maybe I would feel so much better about my body. In hindsight, that's the dumbest thing I've ever said in my entire life, because it just makes it even worse. It just multiplies it even more. But how do you deal with the body dysmorphia? Because it just, when I first started learning about it, it just seems so fascinating to me that I've talked to some of the most in shape people on the planet, and even they suffer with stuff, sometimes even more than the general public.
Absolutely. Definitely grateful, but never satisfied. That's the way that I always think about it. There's always that up level. I think the most important thing is just to be proud of how far you've come and remember that. We like to forget that, but grateful but never satisfied. Always push harder. Always, that's always motivation to just give more.
And I mean, now that you're also a bikini pro, you're now the little fish in the big pond again. How do you deal with that? That like now it's just the beginning. Now the real competition starts. How long did it take for you to sort of grasp that? Because I've had some people where it's like a few minutes after they win, then they're like, "Oh crap! Now I got to compete against the pros now."
Yes, yes, I'm very excited. I don't know what the future holds for me, so I'm just gonna again try not to think about it too much. I don't want to psych myself out and just go for it. And whatever happens, I'm gonna take the judges' feedback and keep going.
Well, and Instagram has also become, such a huge thing in this sport. It's helped grow the sport a lot. One of the negatives, though, I think, is that You're able to view everyone that you're competing against if you know ahead of time like who you're competing against. I would suffer from it more than the average person, where I would be checking weekly on the people, and if they took a really good angle, a really good shot, I'd be like, "Oh, why am I even competing? Like, why am I even going up against these people? I'm not going to win." Have you ever dealt with that, and has it gotten easier if you have, or even if you haven't? Like, how do you deal with the fact that you literally have that temptation where you could go down that road of just constantly comparing yourself to other competitors?
I like to think of it as proof. Instead of feeling awful and comparing myself, it's more like if she can do it, I can do it. At the same time, if I know I'm going to be going up against a specific girl, I rather would just not look during prep, because that's going to, during prep brain and all that, I know that's not good for me. So if I can avoid it, I will. But always just remember that it's proof you can.
That's a good way to look at it too, because a lot of people do take the opposite path where they just, fall down that rabbit hole. But what has been some of the things that you've seen change the most about the bodybuilding industry since you got started? Because this is a sport that's ever evolving, and doing this for over 5 years, I've seen it become a whole entirely new sport, and then even on a yearly basis, it changes so drastically.
The intensity, it gets more difficult every single year. The amount of leanness that everybody's been bringing in, I think the talent pool just gets deeper every year, more difficult for sure.
Oh yeah, and especially what they're looking for too. I mean, like physique competitors 10 years ago or 5 years ago are basically figure competitors, maybe wellness competitors now. Just it's gotten so much of a harder look and so much of a, they want the striations now when they didn't want them before. So it is really ever changing and evolving. And what's the best piece of advice you would give to someone if they walked up to you and they said, Carly, I'm really looking to get started on my fitness journey, but I just don't know what to do?
I would suggest getting started at home. I think there's nothing wrong with learning how to work out before. Too many people just want to jump into the gym. They have no clue how to use any of the equipment, and then they get intimidated and they never want to go back. I think the best advice would be to just start off slow. There's so much online nowadays. There are so many workout tapes. There's amazing instructors. They'll walk you through exactly how to move. They'll tell you when to breathe, even. I mean, I think the most important thing would be to learn the basic movements. And then once you feel comfortable, move into the gym and grow from there.
Well, and yeah, getting a coach is important too. But when it comes to being coachable and being a coach, what in your opinion makes a coach a good coach? Because people are different. People require different things of a coach. And unfortunately, with all the guests that I've talked to, I've come to the realization that there are a lot more bad coaches than there are good coaches, because a lot of times everyone just thinks that they're a coach. But in your own personal situation, what to you makes a coach a good coach?
Somebody who would make a great bodybuilding coach is somebody that is not going to suggest unhealthy ways to achieve your goals. I would never want to work with something that would ask me to put unnatural things into my body or to do things that were dangerous for me. Um, I also think a great coach is somebody that doesn't push someone too hard. There's a lot of Nazi people out there that just want to, and it doesn't work.
They just care about the results. They don't care about how you get them or the lasting effects.
Yes, absolutely. And every athlete is a little bit different. So depending on who your athlete is, the way you speak to them is important as well. And just knowing how their body is. Not everybody's body will react to the same thing in the same way. So you have to know who you're working with.
Well, for me, the most undervalued skill is that you need to be incredibly good at reading people too.
Yeah.
You need to know when to say certain stuff at the right time, and when to sort of lay off and let the people relax. You have to be an incredible judge of character, especially as these competitors and your clients go through these extreme amounts of emotions due to dieting and just all the other things in life too. You just really need to know how to judge where someone's at and what you need to say, because I've had too many times where the coaches go way too hard on the person and they don't know that it's time to let up, not let up like with the workouts, but maybe just let up with like maybe not scolding them as much or doing anything, where it's just let them be. You need to be a really, great judge of character as well. And I mean, I got to imagine that's somewhat similar to being a realtor as well, because like you don't want to just be so brash and bombastic all the time. Do you think that that's helped you at all, at least in your people skills, that might help you in other aspects of your life?
Absolutely, yes. people are going to react to things different ways, and people are always having different mindsets. Some people think they know it all, so have fun talking to that person. Other people are kind of looking to you for guidance, so you have to know who you're dealing with and how to speak to them.
Well, and I got to ask you a realty question just because it's funny that, you're 2 years younger than me and you're a realtor, because me and my friends, we always have that joke of thinking that we'll ever own houses in our entire lives, which we always kind of laugh at. But how's the realtor market working right now for you in Florida?
The market's pretty slow right now. So it is what it is, but that's part of it. Like I said, it's very like bodybuilding. You can't have something happen overnight. It is a slow process. It comes in waves. So that is definitely a great thing that I'm very glad I learned from bodybuilding first before starting real estate. There's so many people that join the business, they're like, I'm not making money, and then they quit and then they're done. And it's like, well, you're not going to sell a house every day. So it is what it is.
Again, I think that comes by or combines way more with bodybuilding than people realize, where it's a job of delayed gratification. That's also the sport of bodybuilding as well. Like you said, it's not going to happen
Absolutely.
overnight. So the more I think about it, it's like I'm surprised that more, because like I've only talked to like probably one other realtor out of my 600 guests I've had on. So I'm shocked that isn't like one of the leading professions, because the lifestyles are so similar, and you get to make your own hours too. So it's not like you have to do your regular 9 to 5 where you have to be like so structured and everything. But yeah, I'm shocked at it. Thank you for bringing that up, at least, because that's an observation. Every once in a while, I become a tiny bit smart on this podcast, and I have a nice little observation. So that happened right here. But a fun question that I've recently come up with: if there was a talent portion of a bodybuilding show, kind of like what they do with beauty pageants, where you had to do a talent, whether it's like singing, dancing, playing an instrument, anything like that, what would your talent be?
Ooh. Hmm. Not that it would be like a super amazing singing portion, but I really enjoy just like show tunes and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if I put on like a little performance from, Greece or who knows.
Oh, okay. You read my mind. I was honestly thinking about that last night. How Grease is the number one movie where you watch it as a kid and then you watch it as an adult. It's the most shocking transformation of all time.
Oh my
When
gosh,
you
right?
realize just how dirty the lyrics are and how just different the story. Like you don't like when you're watching a kid, you're like, oh yeah, they're singing about Grease Light, and then you actually listen to the song as an adult, and you're like, wait,
It's
what?
like we were allowed to
Yeah,
watch
we
this.
were allowed to sing that too. I was allowed to sing that song when I was like 6 or 7 years old. So it's like no idea what
Hilarious.
that was. So yeah, and then yeah, that's the one example that I always said to people. It's like when you grow up, you realize so many little things, and you also realize that the entire cast was like 30 years old too, playing teenagers, and you're like, okay, that's funny
Yeah.
as well. When they have when the guys have the 5 o'clock shadow and they're talking to the principal about being suspended, it's just yeah. We could do a whole podcast on just how hilarious Grease is, but I enjoyed it. I mean, that's the movie my mom saw in theaters 20 times when she was a kid, so that was her movie growing up. But yeah, I love that you brought that up, because honestly, on my walk list, and I was thinking about that, I was like, because I Grease was on like a week ago, and I watched it for the first time in like probably like 10 years, and then I was like, yeah, it is crazy. But show tunes, I wish I had a singing voice. I'm the only person in my family that doesn't have the voice of an angel, so you imagine how much taunting I get, where it's just yeah. So we're opening sore wounds really here on this podcast as well. But if someone were to also come up to you now, this is my two golden questions that I ask everyone at the end here. If someone were to also walk up to you and say, Carly, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
That's a tough one. I don't know if I would want to change anything.
Prize money.
That would be a good one. It is very expensive to compete, so if they would like to reward us a little heavier, that would not
I
be
should honestly start that question from now on with other than prize money. What would be one thing
yeah,
you want to change? Because like that's such an obvious one.
yeah,
Yeah,
that would be nice.
I don't know. I honestly think I think honestly like what you described, where just have a judging that's more commonplace, where like everyone sort of agrees on the same exact model, as opposed to like you said, where some people are like, oh, you got to go to figure, and then other people are like, oh no, you could stay in bikini. I just wish there'd be more of a
Yeah,
centralized, like this is exactly what we're looking for, people, like just even make a model out of it and just be like, this is the proportions that we want, this is the look that we want, this is exactly, instead of just having it be, it's a sport of human judgment, where trust me, is you've competed sports and I've competed in sports, we know how much human judgment plays in every single sport, but especially in one where they're just judging you on your appearance, there needs to be a clear cut, like this is exactly what we're looking for if you're judging someone just on their appearance, and on their posing too, obviously, but like that's a whole different thing that you can judge them on as well. But yeah, that is one thing that I would, hopefully see there. And when we do have you on a year from now, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved when we have you back in a year?
Um, I definitely want to continue competing. I would like to move into the IFBB and NPC right now. I'm going to be, I'm qualified for the NGA universe already this year. So I'm going to go there. And then maybe next year I will be competing in figure and physique at the universe instead, and then bikini with NPC. So that would be great.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And when it comes to show days, what is your favorite thing about show day, and what is your least favorite thing about show day?
My least favorite thing is definitely how early I have to get up to get ready. um, you have like your tanning and makeup appointments and all that stuff, and they're like 6 a.m. I'm like, okay, great. My favorite thing is definitely the glam and the stage shots.
How long does it usually take for you to get the stage shots afterwards?
Not too long, probably a couple days, maybe.
Oh wow, yeah, because I think it just depends on the photographer. But I have people like, oh yeah, it takes
Yeah,
a few weeks, and then I've had other people who are like, yeah, I get them that night, and it's like, okay, what kind of operation are they running then? Are they just doing all that? So again, like everything really in this sport, it really does vary. And what would you say is probably the most common myth or misconception that you get by people as a bodybuilder that you would just love to dispel?
maybe like the size and weight that people assume. People see pictures and they think, oh my gosh, that girl's massive. And then they see them in person and it's like, oh, she's just like, 5 foot something. Or people think they're like, or how much do you weigh? They think I weigh so much. I'm like, I'm cutting. I don't weigh that much at all. You should ask me in my off season. Like,
I was shocked too when I went to. I've only been to two bodybuilding shows, and they're both local shows, just because I knew a lot of people that I've talked to on this podcast were competing, and I'm 6'3" myself, so I was shocked when I went there at just how short some of the people were too. I could rest my elbow on some of their heads basically, and just. But it was shocking too because some of them are quite massive, but they're just so short too that they just look
yeah, isn't
so
that fun?
unevenly proportioned where you're just like what's going on here. But then every once in a while you get the blue unicorn where it's someone's 6 feet tall and they're still super jacked and you're like, okay, what's going on here then? Because that's just impressive to me as well. But yeah, it is a crazy in a good way sport when you really dive into it and you really get down to it. And if there was one piece of advice that you could have given yourself before you started competing, what would it be?
You can diet if you put your mind to it. Dieting was very hard, especially getting started. So
What was the hardest part about dieting when you were starting?
I think it was just the fact that I couldn't eat anything that I just wanted or anything that was convenient. I had to eat this specific thing. So it was like, even if I'm like on the road and not even for long, just out running errands or something, and all of a sudden I'm super hungry, I can't just stop and get something. I have to wait because I have 4 ounces of fish waiting for me at home. So that was very aggravating for me. But now I've learned, always come prepared, eat every 2 hours. There's no reason to be cranky.
Yep. You hit it right there. But lastly, what is your relationship like with cardio? Because I hate cardio myself. And when I say cardio, I mean like actual running. I go on my walks nightly just to get in my 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And I enjoy those just because it's, nice out and you get some fresh air. But unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you're starting to deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship like with cardio?
I do not love it. I will be completely honest. Cardio is cardio. Got to get it done. I enjoyed the benefits of it, but that's about it.
Yep. 1,000,000%. And then finally, as you can tell by these eyes, I have not gotten that much sleep these past couple of days. I have been just stocked with my job and with doing all this stuff. How do you deal with sleep, especially as you get closer to a show? Because it becomes so much harder as you get more and more dieted down. And even if you're like me and you just struggle in general, how do you try to at least get a proper amount of sleep? Because for me, if I don't get at least probably 5 or 6 hours, I don't work out on those days just because I know I'm not going to be able to get it just because I just get too cranky.
Oh yeah, I definitely have to get my sleep in. I have to get like 8 hours myself. So as long as I just make sure the room is nice and cold, I try to keep it as dark as possible, sleep as long as I can. Unfortunately, I do have pee breaks because I'm drinking like 1 to 2 gallons of water every day, but it is what it is. I say just make the room as comfortable as you can.
You almost just want to hook up a catheter to yourself, really, when you go to
Yeah.
sleep. I mean, that would honestly just help so much. But yeah, the only time I ever worked out on zero sleep was in college, and that was the worst workout of my life. I got it done, but like I was just absolutely dead. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I would like to give a shout out to my fiance. He's always by my side and there with me for competitions, and he always is there for the ugly side too. So thanks for sticking around with me. And a shout out to my coach, Tanner. Thanks for working out with me and giving me my meal plans and always believing in me and pushing me as far as I can.
I've always said the significant others are the unsung heroes of this podcast because they deal with the stuff that they also yeah, they're the people that really the competitors go to and stuff, and they deal with all that. So shout out to him as well. And I mean, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey with us. It was an absolute delight to have you on. Everyone, go and check out Carly's Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below. And Carly, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.